Hello and welcome to the WiSP Sports Desk with me, Chris Stafford. This is episode 43 of season 3 already. And Nancy Gillen is joining me as usual from England. Nancy, how are things with you over there now?
Good, yeah. Very cold. It's got really, really cold here. Bit of snow over the weekend. See a bit of concern over this new variant, but I think we're all just keeping our fingers crossed that we'll be able to have a normal Christmas. And yeah, as always, a lot of sport to distract us anyway. So yeah, all good.
Certainly is. Well, it's all relative when it comes to snow because Peggy Shinn is joining us from Killington, Vermont. And Peggy, it's always great to have you. Peggy, of course, is a reporter for teamusa.org and immersed in snow sports now. Peggy, how's it going?
Well, it's going well. I'm back in my comfort zone with the winter sports, and Vermont turned from a sort of barren fall wasteland on Friday into a winter wonderland on Saturday, just in time for the Killington World Cup. Killington got apparently 19 inches of snow that night, Friday night into Saturday morning. So it looks like Santa can fly his sleigh. Did you hear that,
Nancy? 19 inches, and you're probably complaining about a little flurry down the street.
Yeah, it was nowhere near as bad as that. Very minimal, but it still brought the whole country to a standstill, as it always does. I think 19 inches of snow here would be, I don't think anyone would leave the house. So yeah, it wasn't quite that.
Oh, I heard some patrons got stuck in a pub somewhere in the UK with the snow because of the snowstorm over the weekend.
Yeah, I saw that as well. I can't remember where it was. I think it must have been very north or potentially Scotland. But yeah, they got stuck in a pub, which to be honest, I don't think they were too sad about. Yeah, it's probably the best place to get stuck if you were going to. But yeah, it was quite a not serious storm, but it was for our standards, it was quite a lot of snow. But yeah, no, not 19 inches.
We are almost in December. Just to remind everybody, we're recording this on Tuesday, November 30th. And it was this past weekend that Peggy was at Killington. And she enjoys reminding me that she lives just down the road from the Killington World Cup venue. 15 minutes away, did you say, Peggy? This is perfect.
Yes, 15. Okay, maybe 20 minutes away. But yes, Killington's in my backyard and it's fun. It's like covering the Olympic Games while being able to sleep in my own bed. Yes,
thoroughly spoiled. But as you mentioned, that you did have a bit of weather on the Saturday, so they started racing in the GS and they had to stop and race again on the Sunday. So tell us how that whole weekend played out then with the weather playing up.
Well, I don't think anybody expected the storm to be quite what it was. They were predicting, 3 to 5 inches. But to wake up with all that snow, there was probably a foot at the base of Killington. And what happened was the wind was whipping. So I heard it was the wind gusts that were whipping the snow around and reducing visibility that caused the race to be first delayed and then canceled. And to be honest, I think a lot of us were surprised that it happened at all and that they even got 9 people down. I heard Mikaela Shiffrin tell the crowd that she couldn't see a thing on the one run that she did. She ran with bib 6. So it's great that it's wonderful that nobody was hurt, but I think they definitely made the right call to cancel that race.
Yeah, I would obviously on the FIS app, they were telling us how it was cancelled. And I think on Twitter, they were tweeting how it was postponed and then it was going to be delayed start to 10:30 and then it cut to 10:30. And we saw, we know it started, didn't it, at 10:30 and then had to stop again because of the weather. So it's like stop, go. But how did the weather improve? I mean, on the Sunday, you had a good day's racing by the look of things.
We did. The snow stopped, but more importantly, the wind died down. So we woke up on Sunday morning with you might have called it a sunny day in Vermont. It was sort of the orange orb of sun showing through the gray clouds. And it did, in fact, flurry a little bit for the second run. But for slalom, it's pretty rare that a slalom is canceled because of the weather. So it was a little bit warmer. So I think everybody really enjoyed the racing, including the racers.
Okay, let's talk about the race itself then, because there weren't too many surprises, were there, with Mikaela Shiffrin actually breaking a record as well, or tying with Ingmar Stenmark's record?
Right. I think the surprise, though, was, she finished second to Petra in both slaloms in Levi, Finland, the previous weekend. Mm-hmm. And prior to that, she had to take a number of weeks off, maybe 2 to 3, with a sore back. She had not trained one run of giant slalom before coming to Killington, and had only had 4 practice runs on Thanksgiving Day before racing the giant slalom. And in her, they only had 9 racers go on Sunday, and Mikaela, her time was quite a bit off. It was about 1.3 off of Tessa Worley, who was in the lead when they canceled the race. So I think people were kind of wondering how she was going to do on Sunday in the slalom, even though slalom is her strength by far. So when she finished first run in second place behind Petra, I don't think anybody was surprised. But what the big surprise was that second run, which was, things don't get much more exciting than that.
Yeah, that was a real surprise, because she really had to do something. She said she was fearless. She was mentally in a really good place for that second run, because in Levi, of course, it all went Petra's way, didn't it? And it looked like it was going to do the same in Killington, that, Mikaela really had to pull something out.
Right. And I heard that Petra had trained for a couple of weeks on the Levi slope before the race. So I think Petra really had an advantage there.
Yes.
Mikaela wasn't able to train at all because of her back. So come to Killington, you've got the hometown crowd, which is so behind Mikaela, and, they can hear the people cheering from the start. So I think she had that going for her. She also talked about this level of intensity that Mikaela needs in order to ski at her best. I think we would call it focus, where you get into the kind of that flow where you're not really aware of anything around you. And she talked about how that used to come really easily to her. And in the events of the past 2 years, with the death of her grandmother and her father and COVID, really just threw her for a loop. And she was last year really struggled to find that focus and energy again. And she said it's becoming harder to conjure that for second run, but she's getting better at it and she's working at it. And I think what we saw at Killington was a return. And even her mother said this, it was sort of like looking back at the Mikaela of old and seeing that come out in her again.
Well, that's good. It's taken a little while, isn't it, for her to climb her own personal mountain and get to this place mentally.
Yes. I mean, she's been at it. If you look at it, she's been racing the World Cup for this is her 11th season. Yes. That's a long time.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
I saw that.
And she said that earlier that, she's been lucky. She's had very few injuries, knock on wood. But her biggest injury, she said, to date is a broken heart from the death of her father. And that I don't know if that ever heals.
Yeah. No. Probably not. I think just having to learn how she lives with it,
right?
As much as anything. But I did see that Petra Vlhova actually made some mistakes that cost her so dearly. She's kicking herself for that. And Mikaela, of course, didn't have those mistakes in the second run.
Right. Well, they actually made a mistake at the same gate, but Mikaela just recovered. It almost looked like a fluid recovery where Petra really had to put almost do a hockey stop to regain her balance and get back in the course. And I think that made a difference. What was nice was to see Petra smiling. And I think her new coach, Lara Guparami's former coach, has really done some wonders for her, helping her, from all appearances, to enjoy the sport.
Oh, that's nice to hear.
Yeah.
It's a very generous gift from Lara. And talking about Swiss skiers, Wendy Holden, as you mentioned, she finished third. So that's a good finish for her over here. And on they go to Lake Louise this week. Let's talk a little bit about that. The first downhill of the season. Yay. First downhill, and training gets off in 5 minutes. I was going to say, it's Tuesday, isn't it? It is. I know. I keep thinking it's Monday. Thoughts on that race and what that's going to look like this season for our first downhill of the season? Well, I think we're
It's always hard to tell because you don't know how people have trained over the summer. But I think we're going to see the Swiss doing well again. It's going to be interesting to see how Breezy Johnson from the U.S. has done over the summer. And I think we can't, even though Mikaela wasn't able to train much speed at the Copper Mountain speed venue in early November, I think we might see her near the front as well.
So mentioning the Swiss, of course, Lara Gutbarami, is she going to continue the season that she had last year? Because that was awesome. And of course, we have to remind everybody we're going into hopefully the Beijing Olympics. Well, we expect it will be a Beijing Olympics in February. They're telling us that won't be cancelled because the omnivore. I wanted to call it the omnivore. It's not omnivore, is it? The new variant. It's Omicron.
Omicron, right.
But yeah, there's a lot to play for this season. What are your thoughts on how the Swiss will come out, how Lara will come out after finding such great form? She really got back to the form that she'd had before her knee injury, hadn't she?
She did. And I can't remember how she did in Solden. I should look at the FIS results. But I think she was supposed to race the giant slalom at Killington. And she, of course, was unable to because they canceled that race. But I'm looking back to see how. She got second in Solden. I think Lara's going to come out firing in Lake Louise, and I think she's going to be a force to contend with this year.
Oh, I hope so. I love that. Competitiveness when she's skiing well, and then of course, we're going to have this duel with Mikaela and Petra, aren't we, in slalom, I think, for the rest of the season?
It will be. And Petra last year raced in Super G and some downhill. And I asked her if she was going to Lake Louise, and she said no. So she's very much focused on the Olympics. She's never won an Olympic medal. So I think her priority is the Olympics. And if she's in contention for the World Cup overall after the Olympics are over, then they'll focus on that. But her number one focus is the Olympics this year.
Interesting.
So,
yeah.
And Mikaela, of course, she wants to race all 5 events at the Olympics, but knows that, the schedule plays a lot into that. If races are canceled and then she has to race, a couple events are back to back, that takes a toll. So it'll be interesting to see how things play out in China. And it's going to be interesting to see how the overall works out, because I think that is going to be secondary to a lot of the athletes who have prioritized the Olympics over it.
Yes, it will be. We're expecting Sofia Goggia to be a force to contend with, though, aren't we?
I hope so. She got 16th in the giant slalom in Solden. She was racing at Killington, but I think, her strengths are the speed events. So I love Sofia. She's just such a fun person to talk to. I think she brings great energy to the Women's World Cup. I hope she does well as well.
Yeah, she really does. She's a tremendous character to follow on social media. She's so funny.
Yeah. And then there was a new Swedish girl who came out in bib number 60. Usually the top 30 seeds have the coveted, they run early in the slalom before the course gets all beat up. And she ended up finishing like 15th. So she was born, she's 18 years old. Do not remember her name. Let me see if I can find it. As I flip through results
Swedish.
Here. Hanna Aronson Elfman. She was born in 2002. She got 15th, and I think it's going to be fun to watch her career because she's a new, young, bright hope. Nice.
We love that. Some new talent. Them and rustle the feathers of the old veterans here.
Right.
Super. Well, one more thing before I let you go, Peggy. We saw Elana Meyers Taylor win again in the monobob. She had a second win of the season.
She did. Yes, undefeated now this season.
Yeah. But not so well in the bob. She was 5th, was she in the bobsleigh?
Yeah, I think they were 5th, and then Kaylee Humphreys was 10th, pushing with Lolo Jones as her break woman. I don't know what's going on with the the two women with the women's bobsled, are they using new equipment? Are they trying, they have a lot of break women to test out before Beijing to figure out who's going to be pushing with whom. So, hopefully things will settle down and they'll start dominating the podium again here in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, we will watch that, of course. And no news on Kaylee Humphrey's citizenship. Is there any update, Peggy?
Nothing that I've heard. I've looked at her social media feeds and nothing so far. But she seems to be all smiles. So I'm hoping that means that there's somebody working pretty hard on her behalf to get her citizenship and her passport straightened out soon. Yeah, makes a big difference to the US team if she's on it. It does.
Indeed. And you are planning to go to Beijing anyway?
I am. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I was thinking it was going to be a little less stressful than Tokyo because vaccines are required unless you want to quarantine for 21 days. But I think with this new variant, there's again uncertainty, but hoping for the best. Because
fingers crossed for her.
Yes, yeah,
awesome, super. Yep. Well, keep writing about it, all the snow sports, and we'll follow you at teamusa.org, Peggy, and hopefully we'll talk to you again before you leave for Beijing.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much. Great to talk to you too.
And to you too. Thank you so much for your time, Peggy. Take care. Stay warm.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well, somebody over here had a 4 a.m. alarm today, Nancy.
Oh, was that for the US-Australia football match?
Yes. I just gravitate towards it because it's so good to see this young talent shine. The depth of talent for the US team is extraordinary. Did you see the highlights of it?
I have. Yeah, I've seen the highlights. There was actually, I think my favourite moment was actually a tackle, which is quite bizarre. But there was I can't remember the name. It was an Australian player. It's probably one of the best tackles I've ever seen. That was my personal highlight. But like you said, it's I think it's nice, quite refreshing to see some of the younger American players on the pitch, and good matchup against Australia.
It really was. And of course, they played them last week. It were 2 matches, 2 friendlies, and the US won 3-1. And Ashley Hatch scored. She plays for the Washington Spirit. We had 3 Washington Spirit players out there, and she was one of them. She scored within, I think it was like 24 seconds or something, within the first minute in that first game last week. And then Rose Lavelle scored, and then Lindsay Horan scored from a penalty. And then today, they drew 1-1, and Ashley Hatch scored within the first 5 minutes again. So I think she's stamped her card, don't you think, for being, for a future with the women's national team, Nancy? I don't think there's any doubt that they'll pay attention to her now.
Yeah, I think so. And like you said, it's still quite a way until the next kind of major tournament for the US, which is the World Cup. But that just gives players the opportunity to, like you said, kind of make their mark and earn a place in the team.
Yeah, and they certainly did. And there was a lot of other talent out there, including Casey Murphy, the goalkeeper. She made her debut. I think there were 5 players making their debut. But, she's 6'1", and in last week, and certainly this week, they really couldn't get much past. They couldn't get anything past her last week. A very frustrated Sam Kerr out there because there were some opportunities, but Casey's reach is enormous. 6'1".
But
today
that's quite interesting as well, because a lot of keepers in women's football are smaller than in men's. I think obviously you do get, on average, women are smaller, but it does seem that a lot of the keepers are kind of you get some that are kind of 5'6", 5'7", 5'8". So it's interesting that the taller keepers obviously are able to kind of use that to their advantage.
Yes, I think Elisa Nair is 5'9", I want to say. I think I read that somewhere. But definitely Casey Murphy had an advantage keeping them out. But today they scored on a deflection. It was a deflection off who was it? It was a deflection of Becky Sauerbrunn. That's right. Becky came on. It was late. I think it was about the 88th minute or something like that. And they had a shot at goal and it deflected off her. And there was no way that Casey could get anywhere near it. You know, it was just one of those things. But there we are. That was 2 friendlies. And as you said, the next big tournament is the World Cup. And our qualifiers actually don't begin until next summer here for the US. But they'll be back with the camp in January, I think. That's when they resume. And I want to ask about, there's a lot of US players scattered around the world. And Tobin Heath, of course, is playing for Arsenal, but she's injured. I did see her. She was on the training ground yesterday, not looking like she was part of the squad playing. She was in shorts. She was in kit, but it didn't look like she was part of. Do you see what I mean? Like, it looked like she was still running around the touchline still. Have you heard any update on her injury?
No, I haven't heard any update, but Arsenal are playing in the FA Cup final on Sunday. So I imagine in the kind of the run-up to that, there will be an update. Hopefully she is fit because, it's a massive week for Arsenal next week. We've got that FA Cup final and then a match against Barcelona in the Champions League. So it'd be very useful to have her fit and playing, but no update as of yet.
And playing Chelsea in the FA Cup final, and presumably Sam Kerr will be back to Chelsea for that.
Yeah, she will be. She'll be causing trouble, I'm sure.
Spoken like a true Arsenal fan. Okay, we've got some news of a Ballon d'Or winner.
Yeah, so the Ballon d'Or took place last night. The most prestigious event in football, really, and they introduced a women's category in 2018, which is very late, but at least it's established now, and female players are being recognised. So the award went to Alexia Putellas, the Barcelona player. Very well deserved. I think she was the favourite. I think if she hadn't won, people would have been angry. So Barcelona last season, they were just so dominant. They won their league. They won their domestic cup competition. And then they absolutely thrashed Chelsea 4-0 to win the Champions League as well. And Putellas was captain for the majority of that, and just she was one of their standout players, and to be a standout player in that team, which is just so full of talent, is really, really impressive. So very well deserved for her. Jennifer Hermoso, her fellow Spaniard and Barcelona teammate, came second. Sam Kerr, who we've just been talking about, she finished third. Vivian Miedema, the Arsenal striker, came fourth, and then it was Lieke Martens, the Dutch player, who came fifth. So, it was. It's always a very kind of glamorous event, and it's nice to see women's football recognised on it. And I think it's previously the winners. Maybe I think there's been a sense that it's not, maybe based on kind of who is more the most famous footballer as opposed to the best. But I think everyone was in agreement that Putellas fully deserved that award. So well done to her.
Yeah, congratulations to her. But I noticed in that top 10 that there was only one NWSL player, and that was Christine Sinclair, plays for Portland Thorns. She finished, she was sixth in the ranking.
Yeah, it is very interesting. I work at Gimme Sport Women. We work a bit with Lucy Bronze, who plays for Man City in England. So I was talking to her last week and I asked her about that, and she said it kind of depends year on year. I think national team comes into it, and I think obviously Sinclair did really well with Canada. So I think there's a degree of who's done well in the national team, and then that is irrespective of the league that they're playing in. And it just so happens that the people that did well at the Olympics weren't playing in the NWSL. And then, I think she was kind of just saying as well that maybe the timings of it, because I think when the NWSL win, it's kind of maybe slightly later in the year, or maybe it's come a bit too late for them to be kind of fully recognised. So there's all kind of factors in that. But yeah, I think there was a lack of NWSL players and then just the complete lack of American players as well. I think it was only Sam Mewis who was in the top 20.
Top 20, wasn't she?
Yeah. So yeah, it's quite interesting, really. But yeah, I mean, I think Sam Mewis is a great player, but yeah, you do wonder. There's probably a few other American players that were disappointed they weren't on that list.
I would imagine so. Yeah. So speaking of Sam Mewis, we've just heard today that she's moving to Kansas City KC Current. Did you see that?
I did see that. Yeah, that's came quite out of the blue for me, but I don't know if that's maybe something that's been more in the woodwork in the US. But I was quite surprised by that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see because she's a very useful midfielder. She's been injured, and so that's why she wasn't on the camp recently. Her older sister, Kirsty, was in Australia, but not Sam, so presumably she's getting back to full fitness. And we've got some good news of another woman being appointed as a head coach to the NWSL, and that's to the Portland Thorns.
Yeah, so Rhian Wilkinson, she, like you said, new head coach of the Portland Thorns. She succeeds Mark Parsons, who is doing an incredible balancing act of coaching the Dutch women's national team and still coaching the Portland Thorns as well. So I wasn't quite sure how long that was going to last, but he now has fully gone over to the Netherlands. So Wilkinson has taken his place. Interestingly, she was actually assistant coach of the England women's national team, and also went to the Olympics with Team GB as well. So has a lot of her experiences in English football over here. And then she's also worked with the Canadian national team as well, which is, seeing as they've just won Olympic gold, so obviously got a lot of experience there. Quite interesting. A lot of that is international football as opposed to club football. So yeah, I wonder how she kind of adapts to club football. But I mean, we all know we've spoken about it so often now, the allegations of everything that's happening within the NWSL, the really high turnover of coaches because of these allegations, accusations of abuse from players making these accusations against their coaches. So, I mean, I imagine that obviously Portland Thorns would have really, when they went through the process of acquiring a new coach, they would have really, with all of this happening in the background, they would have gone through a proper process and, checked everything out and made sure that it was, a good appointment in terms of football experience, but then also good for just making sure that this kind of culture of abusive behaviour is at an end. So, yeah, hopefully this is the start of kind of a new kind of stream of coaches coming into the NWSL and helping end that culture.
Yes, please let's have more women coaches. And now we talked about the Omicron variant, and as Peggy mentioned, she's planning to go to Beijing, and we have heard that according to China, that they will not postpone Beijing because of this variant. So that's really good news, but it has forced the cancellation of the Winter Universiade in Lucerne, Switzerland, hasn't it?
Yeah, and I feel really, really sorry for the organisers here. I went to the 2019 Winter Universiade in Russia, and it was already, because it's every 2 years, like the organisation for this was already in place, been years and years in the making, and it was originally meant to take place at the start of this year, so in January, and then because of COVID, it was pushed back to this month, so December the 11th to the 21st, and now it's been cancelled completely because of the variant. Also, I think because of the border restrictions that Switzerland have imposed. So, I mean, over here, Switzerland has kind of been the strictest European country at imposing border restrictions straight away, and on essentially, it's every country where the I can't say it very well. Omicron. I mean, I'm definitely going to get used to saying that, I think. Omicron variant. Where the variant is, the countries where the variant is detected, and as we know, that's kind of growing day by day. So it would have restricted. It would have made a lot of athletes unable to enter the country without having to do a quarantine period of 10 days. And when you bear in mind, this is only kind of a university sport competition, it's not like these athletes have the flexibility or kind of the finances to be, staying in Switzerland for so long. And I'm not sure that Lucerne would have the kind of capabilities to be quarantining all these athletes as well. So, yeah, they made the decision to cancel the event. And unfortunately, they said that the postponement of the event was not an option. So, yeah, I think that's just really, really gutting. Obviously, this was happening a lot in 2020, but I think at the time it was kind of like there was the whole world was in crisis and there was a bigger picture to it. And then I think now things then started to get a lot more positive and sporting events were happening again. So I imagine for them, they've been so hopeful of this happening and then it to be cancelled again and things seemingly to be going backwards, I think is pretty gutting, yeah. But like you said, Beijing organisers have said the Olympics will still go ahead. And there's also been another story about the Birmingham 2022 Commonwealth Games as well, where they've said the variant is a concern, but they're still hoping to hold the games with full capacity. So, of course, that's not until next summer. So, yeah, I really hope it's not going to be a problem then. But, can't be naive, can we?
That's a long way off, but I did see a World Health Organization just a few moments ago tweeted that or put out a news alert that there's so much they don't know about it that they don't want to cause any alarm because research has just begun with this Omicron variant. So of course we've got to be concerned. But as you say, Birmingham is not till next summer. Hopefully. They will know a lot more by then and have new vaccines in place as well. But just going back to Beijing, I don't know if you noticed that they cancelled the Beijing Marathon, which was due to be held at the end of October because of COVID.
Yeah, and I did see that. And it's quite, they've literally have not held a kind of international sport event since COVID broke out, the start of 2020, which is quite significant because China was meant to host a lot of sports events. It's got the finances to hold these big sporting events. And it's getting closer and closer to the Olympics and they're cancelling all these events. And it does make you think, obviously, the Olympics are the biggest sporting event in the world. But, seeing as they're not willing to hold these other events, are they going to be willing in kind of 2-3 months' time? I don't know. I think it will go ahead. This is literally transporting me back to a year ago. We were talking about Tokyo with this, but I think it will go ahead, but probably in quite strict conditions. And it's just a shame. I think it's just a shame. I think people were really looking forward to this as something that might be able to take place without COVID kind of looming over it. But it looks like that's going to happen again.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep you posted with the news as it breaks here every week on the show. Now, I want to go back to modern pentathlon because this story that we reported on, we had Samantha Murray, the former Olympian, come on the show to talk about the debacle in international modern pentathlon. And there's been a lot of developments since then. As Sam indicated, there would be further meetings of Congress. But it doesn't look like we're going to resolve this anytime soon, does it?
No. I mean, the whole, it's a very interesting situation because you've essentially got a bit of a kind of revolution now. You've got national federations. So the national federations of Denmark, Sweden and Finland, they've called the Congress of the Modern Pentathlon Association, where they've passed the motion to remove riding from one pentathlon. Those three federations have called the Congress farcical and made complaints about the way it was held. Apparently there were multiple breaches of UIPM election rules. Apparently because it was held on Zoom virtually, that was used to halt debate. And I have heard that I think maybe when Samantha Murray was on, she said that was a concern of hers, the fact they could literally just mute someone on Zoom if they wanted to.
She did.
Yeah. And it's you've now got this whole, I think it says in the Inside the Games articles, more than 650 athletes to saying that they have no confidence in the UIPM president, Klaus Schurman, and the rest of the executive board. And yet he's still kind of re-elected. And they've still passed this motion to get rid of riding. And it's, like almost like this revolution from below where you've got the athletes pitted against the governing body. And in that situation, like, you know, it's a question of who wins there. Like, would the athletes want to break away or something like that? Or, you know, how does a governing body function if they don't have its own athletes on side? So, yeah, it's a really, I mean, interesting from the perspective of kind of just looking externally, but within it, it's a shame that it's kind of become very messy. And I just hope that there is a solution found quickly. And, you know, when we heard Sam talk earlier when she was on the show a few weeks ago, she was very, very passionate about it. And it did make you obviously realise that the way the International Federation is not being run properly. And hopefully that can not sort itself out, but hopefully there can be a solution to that soon.
Yeah, because just to remind everybody, Samantha Murray is part of Pentathlon United, which is a splinter group that has been formed by the athletes who are not happy with this decision by the governing body to drop riding, drop the equestrian discipline from the modern pentathlon. So this group is being as vocal as it can be. So you have to wonder, to your point, Nancy, that if this is the athletes group and they're not happy with the way the governing body is running the sport, the International Federation is running the sport, and they question the governance, that the governance, not just being not happy with them, but also the manner in which they're governing, that could come to be questioned, I think, legally, if they're not. I think, you know, it doesn't meet with the Ted Stevens Act, which, you know, they have to comply with as an Olympic discipline.
Yeah, and I think this has, I believe, already been taken to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. So, like you said, it's something that will now be looked at legally, and it has just shown the extent to which how serious this has got, essentially.
Yeah. Well, we're going to stay with sports politics now with our next story. I wanted to mention this because, you know, we know there's corruption in sports politics right from the highest level. And I think this was a case in point after the Rio Olympics of Carlos Nuzman, who's been sentenced to more than 30 years in prison, and some of his cohorts too, for corruption surrounding the Rio 2016 games. Nancy, did you read this story?
I did, yeah. And this is something that, you know, it's kind of been like rolling on and on and on, I think, since 2016. But yeah, definitely from my time at Inside the Games, I was writing a few stories around this. And yeah, it's kind of now reached a conclusion. Well, not quite, because he's received a sentence, but he won't actually be imprisoned until the appeal process is over. But yeah, I think just there's always, you know, I think with every Olympics and Paralympics, well, recently there seems to always be a question about kind of how fairly the city was awarded the games. I think with Rio, there was quite a lot of questions about it. And yeah, so Nuzman he was arrested in 2017 as part of an investigation called Operation Unfair Play, which essentially he was suspected of organising a $2 million bribe of members of the IOC to award the Olympic and Paralympic Games to Rio. And yeah, he is essentially kind of allegedly the architect of this whole scheme. And now, yeah, he's been found guilty of corruption, criminal organisation, money laundering and tax evasion. So I think there's already quite a lot of things that cast a bit of a shadow on that Rio 2000 Olympic Games. But this does more so. And yeah, I would encourage it. I mean, the story in Inside the Games is very long and detailed, and there's kind of a lot more of it to it than what I've just said. It's this whole kind of complex web of corruption. So I would encourage people, if they're interested in it more, to go and read the story. But yeah, it really kind of casts a shadow on Rio 2016.
It certainly does, a huge shadow. And as Nancy said, that's a story that's well worth reading. And we'll leave the link in the show notes at wisports.com. So just go on to wisports.com and click on the WISP Sports desk and you'll find that story with the link to, with a link there to the full story. And as you mentioned, he wasn't the only one that was convicted as well. The former Rio de Janeiro governor, Sergio Cabral, and Leonardo Greiner, who was the former director general of Rio 2016, they were also sentenced to prison terms. And the whole thing, that's like a movie. That's like the Godfather movie, isn't it? A mafia movie, because it is rather like the mafia, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. I think there is all of that. Like I said, a complex web, kind of all this stuff going on. So it's, it's interesting, but quite shameful, I think.
$2 million. It is shameful. $2 million bribe. Hopefully this sends a message to future host cities that, you can't get away with this kind of corruption. And he's certainly paying the price. He's looking towards 30 years in prison, just he alone. And the others, I think Cabral is sentenced to 10 years plus, and Greiner to 13 years plus. So hopefully it sends a message for the future. But yeah, definitely a story worth reading there from inside the games. And we're moving on now to a good story, a happy story. Alex Scott becomes the first woman to be named Pundit of the Year. Now, this is a happy story, but is it a big deal?
I think it is quite a big deal. Yeah, I would say it is. So I think it's a big deal because it's down to a public vote. So essentially, I think so it's the Football Supporters Association in the UK, and there was almost 400,000 votes cast for this whole award. So that's quite a big proportion. That's a high amount of football fans essentially voting on this. So she was named Pundit of the Year based on public vote, and she was also shortlisted against a number of quite heavyweight pundits and kind of footballing legends. So Alan Shearer, Rio Ferdinand, Gary Neville, Jamie Carragher, and Ali McCoist. And yeah, she outvoted them. Well, she won the vote, so she beat them all. And yeah, I think she was very, very groundbreaking in what she's done as a pundit. So she was a former player, went into media, she became the first woman to report at a Men's World Cup for the BBC in 2018, became the first female pundit on Sky Sports, became the first female face of BBC's Football Focus in May. And so it's it's amazing that she's done all that, but then it's also amazing that you've got people voting for her saying she is the best of the best, essentially. And it really, and it's not that it shouldn't need validation, but it does validate having women kind of commenting and acting as pundits and presenting football and stuff like that. So I think it's really good news. And yeah, it is quite a big deal.
I know who was also very popular this year for her commentary from Chelsea was Emma, the Chelsea manager.
Emma Hayes, yeah.
Emma Hayes.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
She was. Yeah, she did the men's Euros here. She was very, very popular. Like she would do co-commentary, or punditry, and just provide the most in-depth analysis. It just raised the bar, I think, for all the other commentators and pundits. And yeah, I mean, full-time she's a manager, but if she ever wanted to go into punditry, I think people would jump to have her as their pundit.
Sounds like she was hugely popular. All right, we're going to move on to another popular English woman right now. And we talked about her the other day in darts, because the World Championships are coming up, aren't they?
Yeah, so Fallon Sherrock, the female darts player who made a name for herself at the 2019... No, it was the 2020, because it's always a year ahead because it goes into January. So it was the 2020 World Darts Championships. She made a name for herself by becoming the first woman to win a match, and then subsequently won a second match. And she's been having a really good year so far. She's done a lot of other historic things in recent months. So she goes into the World Championships, which starts in a couple of weeks, in a really good form. So they've done the draw, and essentially, if Sherrock gets to the third round, she will play the defending champion, Gerwyn Price, which could be a really, really amazing match, and hopefully she will get that far. Anticipation for that is ramping up a lot. She's not the only woman to be competing in that. Lisa Ashton will also be playing. It will be her third appearance at the World Championships. So yeah, but I'm really hoping that we get a good run from one of the women competing.
That would be awesome. And what's the dates again for the World Championship?
So it starts on the 15th of December. I think it gets to kind of the interesting part towards the latter end of December and the start of January. But yeah, it takes place at Alexandra Palace, which is just down the road from me. But it's absolutely impossible to get tickets. So I'll be watching on TV.
Ali Pali, we call it.
Ali Pali.
Ali Pali.
I didn't want to say that in case people didn't know what I was talking about, but yeah, Ali Pali.
Right. No, I don't think it's known internationally, but Ali Pali is the local name for it. We fondly call it. Alexandra Palace has hosted many a great event over the years. And that's interesting that you already can't get tickets. Like even to the opening games, the early games,
it's impossible. I'd say I looked about 2 months ago. I think you genuinely, like, as soon as it comes out, which I think is probably in summer, you have to be on the day getting tickets. It's such a popular event. I mean, it's such an amazing venue. And yeah, I think now as well, you've got kind of that added spectacle of having people like Fallon Sherrock causing a bit of drama and excitement. So yeah, obviously I'm not saying that she made the event sell out, but I think people are also very keen to watch her play as well.
Yeah. And so going back to football, because you've got an FA Cup final, give us the dates for that.
That's December the 5th. That's taking place at Wembley Stadium.
Next week.
2 p.m.
And you'll be going as a pundit or are you reporting on it?
I'm going as press. So I'm going for work. And then it's Arsenal playing Barcelona in the Champions League on the Thursday afterwards. And I'm going to that as a fan. So I've got my work and then got like play time later in the week. So it'd be a massive week for Arsenal. And I hope we win both games, but I'm not too sure whether that will be the case.
Well, good luck to Arsenal. I did want to mention, when I was talking about all this young talent that was shining their light in Australia with those 2 friendlies on the US team. There's a handful of players that I'm really, really excited about. Now, one of them wasn't there. Trinity Rodman, you probably heard her name. She has been a really standout player this season on the NWSL League. She declined an invitation to go to that camp, but Sophia Smith is one. So Trinity would be another. Sophia Smith would be another one, and I'm very excited about. And Katarina Macario, she had a bit of a groin injury apparently, so she didn't actually play. But I'm very excited about her. And who was the other one I was thinking of? Emily Fox. She's a defender, and she's out there in Australia. She really has got a sprint on her. Very excited about her. Who are your standout players? We're going to do this at the end of the year, aren't we? We're going to have a little review. But who are your standout players at the moment?
Is that for the US or just the whole world?
Well, you could start with the US, because I know you pay attention to what we're doing over here. You have to.
Yeah, well, I'm also a big fan of Trinity Rodman. I think she's very exciting. In the whole for England, I go with some of England's. Beth Mead, who plays for Arsenal in England, she's been in really good form, and Lauren Hemp as well is a really good young player. And then I suppose going back to Alexia Putellas as well, haven't watched her play in person, but I'll be able to do that next week at the Emirates. So I'll be able to report back if she is truly Ballon d'Or worthy. So I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, she probably is one of my standout players of this year.
Of the year. Okay. I was thinking about our talent and how deep that well is of talent. It's going to be hard for some of the veterans to get back on the team,
Yeah.
With a lot of this new blood now coming along. I know you want a mix of experience and youth, but yeah, it will be very interesting to see who gets back. When you think of our, top tier, Tobin Heath, Kristen Press, Alex Morgan, Megan Rapinoe, Mallory Pugh as well. Lynn Williams was in Australia, but just that handful of those forwards, they're just the forwards. We've got a lot more veterans. You have to wonder how they're going to, remind Vlatko Andonovski that they have not yet retired like Carly Lloyd.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's they've probably I don't know if you'd almost expecting to be kind of maybe, obviously they'd be thinking I'm at the end of towards the end of my career, but I think they would all probably have had a big tournament in mind maybe, or, a certain period. And it's kind of like now the decision is almost not in their hands anymore because all these younger players are coming through and playing. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see, I think, really interesting. And like you said, whether, the likes of Rapinoe will be, back on the pitch and being as pivotal or an integral part of that team. I'm not sure, to be honest. So yeah, really intriguing.
It is. And a lot happening in women's rugby as well, we should point out. And not least of all with our friends Naya Tapper and Elana Meyers, who were playing for Team USA Rugby in Dubai for the Rugby Sevens. They won some, lost some last week. Elana scored some tries and so did Naya. They had a good competition last week and they're heading into a second week of competition this week. That's in Dubai for the Dubai Sevens. So good luck to them. Don't forget there's World Cup skiing, including the first downhill of the season from Lake Louise in Canada this weekend, and all that football, as Nancy just mentioned. And we'll have a lot more to report on next week's show. So I hope you'll join us then. In the meanwhile, don't forget to download any podcast app. You'll find WiSP Sports or the WiSP Sports Desk. There's 2 channels to listen to the show, and you can find the show notes on our website at wisports.com, and follow us on social media at WiSP Sports. Do post your comments, questions, any suggestions for guests or stories that you'd like to hear about. We would love to hear from you. Any feedback and any rating and reviews that you care to give us helps others find the show, of course. And you can follow Nancy at...
on Twitter, I'm Nancy_Gillen. And then I'm also on Instagram at NancyGillen_sports.
Terrific. All right, Nancy, we'll have a good weekend. Enjoy your football, and we'll see you back here next week, same time, same place.